I love the pod. I love the pod. Oh, are we starting?
Okay, what is up, our many, many fans listening to this episode of Double Buffs number 10? As always, here with my co-host, Cristiano Attacalite. How are you doing today, Cristiano?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to bring the knowledge on some banger series last weekend. And there was one banger series, but that is what I'm ready to bring the knowledge on. How are you, Gregory?
I'm good. Me and Cristiano, you obviously know this, but both of us were in Vermont last weekend, so we didn't have time to check out the games right away.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a period where I was checking out the games. I was writing down my notes. Game 5, or the Team Liquid versus Cloud9 series was awesome. I'm finally recovering from that. Today I had a little presentation for one of my jobs. But yeah, otherwise I'm ready to get into things.
Lovely.
So,
where do you want to start?
I guess we can start at the first series, which was Team Solo Mid versus Team Liquid. Do you have any initial things you want to say about the series?
I'm just a little bit disappointed in TSM. I think they showed throughout the regular season that they could stand toe-to-toe with some of these higher-up teams. And, that just didn't really come through in this series, which is too bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely look at it that way, but there was a really close game 2, which I was really excited about starting from the draft and following all the way through the gameplay. I think it was in game 2 specifically was my game to watch for this series because I think the draft was so awesome. Team Liquid gave Team Solo Mid their first pick of choice, which was Gnar, which was a massive pick in the 100 Thieves series. Huni just kept automatically picking it game after game.
Right?
Yeah, first picking it. So TSM did it this game against Team Liquid. And immediately Team Liquid's response was Nocturne Rel. Rel was a really big pick this series, but I was also tunnel visioned on Nocturne going into the top lane because, we hadn't seen much of it in jungle. And our Mayo isn't really known for like his big champion pool. So I really thought it was going top lane immediately. But it ended up going into the jungle. And later in this draft as well, we saw Jensen finally pick out his Annie that he'd been grinding in solo queue this season, which he promised to whip out in the LCS and never did. But he finally did because these teams were practicing on the same patch for 3 weeks. And I guess in scrims, Annie became kind of the pseudo counter pick to Lucian mid, which Team Solo Mid went with. And I immediately was like, wow, this is awesome. From Team Liquid, I could easily see how Annie's flash engage with Tibbers just double stunning the TSM's backcourt of Tristan and Lucian and just automatically demolishing them. I could see it in my mind. And then the game didn't play out that way at all. Power of Evil's Lucian looks super crisp, which is, he's picked it out previously this season, but he's mainly known for Zaire, Orianna, Victor, etc. But he looked super crisp on Lucian this game, and Team Solo Mid got like up to a 7,000 gold lead because they were just pressuring so hard that Team Liquid didn't really manage to get into the series at all. But then all of a sudden there was like 4 fights in a row where Team Liquid's execution on their dive comp was super good, where they had like Nocturne and Rel going in at the exact same time onto Team Solo Mid's Fed Tristana or Fed Lucian, and with Tibbers and stuff, immediately blowing them up, bringing it to like a 5v4 team fight, which Team Liquid would win, and ultimately coming back from that 7,000 gold deficit.
Yeah, and that TSM team comp, it doesn't have like the world's most amount of CC either. So having this Nocturne who has a spell shield, so you can mitigate some of the small amount of CC you do have, and Kai'Sa's gonna be having a field day. It makes sense to me that later on in the game, when these team fights become more pivotal, TL was able to bring it back. And also, you mentioned the Annie seems like a good pseudo counter to Lucian. I see that as well. You can sort of the point and click CC with the Q on Lucian's dash, or even just like you said, an instant flash Tibbers. It's instant. There's no time to react. It just comes right out. Seems pretty nice. I'm surprised you didn't see any other Annie throughout either series, though. Right? Am I forgetting?
Mm.
I don't think so.
No, that was the only Annie. But yeah, it does make a lot of sense because when you have an attack damage carry in the mid lane, they need to get into close range to hit minions, to hit the turret, to hit you, which can put you into like Tibbers range or Q range really easily. So, but I think Team Solo Mid, I think this was kind of like known in the scrim culture behind the scenes that Annie was the counter pick. So it seems like Team Solo Mid opted into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really intelligent with the Nocturne into the jungle thing, I think, because Huni had been playing Nocturne as his answer into Gnar. So you see Huni lock the Gnar first round, and unless I'm trolling here, I think TSM had first lock-in, right?
What?
In that game?
Yeah, they first picked Gnar, and then it was responded by
Nocturne,
and then
okay.
Team Soul Mid got Lilia, which was like the last good jungler.
So it looks like TL is like taking Huni's pick out against him against the Gnar, and then you switch it to the jungle. Very nice, and I think it probably does decently into Lilia anyway. With the spell shield, once again, you can block like the swirl seed or that terrible watch out Eep. Or even the sleep, even more ideally. But so that seems like a pretty intelligent pick, I think. And maybe who knows? Maybe they were probably actually intending it as a flex pick. And then when Lilia is locked into that second round, they say, okay, we're going to take this Nocturne to the jungle. Alfari's obviously very proficient on this Gangplank. He's been playing it for splits on splits, and he popped off this game on it. So obviously it was the right call. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree. I like the Team Liquid draft overall.
Mm-hmm. Some other notes about the series, I think, from Team Solo Mid side, just because they're no longer in the picture, we're going to talk about Team Liquid a little more in the next series. But two of my biggest takeaways from the series was that Power of Evil looks really, really good. He just performed really well the entire series. Even his Lucian looked better. And I also think that TSM lost because of Huni. I think Huni needs to really, I think Team Solo Mid needs to examine Huni's lane phase for next split, because if they don't improve it, I think they'll have no chance at Worlds, let alone North America. And the reason I say this is because throughout playoffs, we saw him consistently going cloth armor and 5 potions, where he would have to burn like 3 or 4 of them in the first trade and then be at like net even in health. So, or he'd be getting like a tier on Nocturne to help out his lane phase, to give him more an advantage. But when you do these things, you have less gold when you start out. And then not only is he getting less gold to begin with, like he was doing this against Someday too, where he was on Gnar, he'd have cloth armor, 5 potions against Jace. And then so he's losing out immediately with this buy. And then he's also getting pressured and out CS by Alfari. We saw this sometimes with Jace. But I'm happy to see his evolution as a player. But when you're like getting out CS, out pressured, you're sacrificing gold in the early game. One of Huni's strong points this year has been his ability to play weak side. And he's kind of evolved into that player where he wasn't that in the past. But his main strength has been like his team fighting phase and his chemistry with the rest of his team. But one of Team Liquid's kind of like, primary play styles that I mentioned last week was just, steamrolling in the lane phase and then carrying that into a victory. So Alfari really is kind of like a really bad matchup for him in that he can steamroll Huni so hard that Huni's good team fighting just gets neglected because he's losing out with his early buy and his CS and his pressure and everything. We especially saw that in Game 4 where it was like TSM didn't even get a single kill, and it was really sad to see. But I think Huni needs to pick it up for next split.
Yeah, Huni really didn't have any like, I don't know what the word is, like standout games, but not even standout, like not even any very good games. Looking at score,
he had 0 kills. He had 0 kills that series.
All series? Let me check.
He didn't have
Let
a
me
single
double check.
kill.
0. 0. Oh my God, you're right. Yeah, that's insane. That's really insane. And looking at Alfari's scorelines, 5-0 on the Scion, 0-1 on the Scion, forgivable, I suppose. But then 8-1 on the Gangplank, 6-2 on the Gnar. Alfari just outclassed Huni all series long, like you were saying. Um, and it's sad because Huni seemed to be having like a bit of a resurgence. You know, in the beginning of the split, if you loyal DoubleBuffs viewers remember, I was flaming Huni, and as the season went on, I became more and more favorable. He seemed to really have mastered that Gnar pick, which has been so important all split long. But yeah, like I said, all I can say is, oh my God, he really got he got body bagged.
I really do think it boils down to the lane phase where he's having these like gold sacrifices, and Alfari is the best person at pushing an advantage in the entire league across any role. So that's why stylistically that matchup is really hard for Team Solo Mid. I think it could have gone a little bit differently against Fudge. But I think just broader scope, I'd say that well, I guess I have two. I have more top lane points in general, and then I have a more broader scope picture for Team Solo Mid, which is that where they did, this was a problem for them for a bit. They also had some mid jungle synergy issues where Power of Evil and Spico really weren't online, but they looked like absolute trash in lock-in the first 2 weeks of North American LCS, where they had a really good learning curve. Like they expanded their play style, they refined their play style really well. And meanwhile, Cloud9 has like 3 returning members. So did Team Liquid. Team Solo had 5 different players altogether. So before Worlds next year, when they have all this extra time to kind of gel and mesh with each other, I really could see them making a big improvement.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. Especially like Power of Evil, I feel like with Bjergsen leaving the player roster, has really like come into his own. I feel like he was always sort of playing second fiddle to Bjergsen in that mid lane, in the big mid lane names to watch. It was like Bjergsen, Jensen, duking it out, and then you have like your Power of Evils down here. But I think we can pretty confidently say that he's playing, on par with Jensen, I would say. Perks with that last series, I don't know if I can put anyone on Perks' tier at this point, but it's just really nice to see Power of Evil. Yeah. It's really nice to see Power of Evil. No? Oh, you disagree.
Well, I think Power of Evil's champion pool is a little restricted, but I think in the champions he plays, I think he's the best mid laner in North America. I think without Power of Evil on this Team Solo Mid team, I think he did so much work for them across the season and in playoffs. Super high damage numbers, great Orianna ultimates, like consistently. He looks so damn good.
Yeah, I mean, he is the real carry threat on this team, right? I mean, Lost had some standout like plays, like individual plays, but he wasn't like that really the guy that you were really confident in that he was going to perform every single game. It was always kind of like, okay, how's Lost going to do in this matchup? He's going to do well. But I feel like Power of Evil, whatever matchup he was going into, you were always confident that he was at least going to be serviceable, even into like the really hard matchups in the league. Matchups against like players, I mean, not champions. Yeah.
And now that playoffs are over and we're just talking about top lane, I was just thinking about this. But I think for top 5 top laners in North America, I'd go Alfari is number 1, Fudge is number 2, Someday is number 3, Impact is number 4, and Huni is number 5. But to be honest, I think I could have seen TSM even like winning a championship this split if they had someone like Licorice instead of Huni, who just seemingly has a larger champion pool and can kind of carry more in the lane phase. And some other notes, I think like Alfari is the best at pushing an advantage. Fudge is superb at at losing gracefully. Like he's kind of like Dyrus from Team Solo Mid of old, where they just leave him on an island. He's super good at playing gracefully, and he has really good chemistry with Blabber. He was talking about in an interview where like his timings are really much better. Like, because like what's kind of interesting is that like Chinese teams at Worlds, they'll say like, oh, you can gank on like at like 3 minutes and 15 seconds. The wave state will be like this. He'll be at like this HP. Like you can predict that like 2 minutes ahead of time. That's how good they are. Like in China. And Fudge was talking about like learning some of this stuff and learning like when to call ganks in specific times and communicating, and that's how he improved a lot over the split. And I think Huni's really good in team fights, but his lane phase is pretty ugly, and Alfari's naturally not a great matchup for him.
Yeah, I actually hadn't noticed that he was going cloth 5 that much, which is really surprising. Does anyone else do that? Have you noticed, or is this like a Huni special?
I'm not sure. I think the casters mentioned I think it's definitely something you can do, especially against someone like Jace. But if you're playing it against other, like if it's an R into Jace, you can go cloth 5 pots. Like, but it's not normal. It's not normal to burn 4 of the potions within the first like 3 trades.
Yikes! Come on, man. You don't have to do him like that. He's got a family.
There's a massive spider on my wall.
Hell yeah! Oh. Tell him to watch. Tell him to give us a like on YouTube.
Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe and like down below, and leave a comment.
It costs you $0.00 to do that, and if you don't, you're a fake fan. There you go. I said it.
All right. What do you think about the Cloud9 and Team Liquid series, or do you have any other notes on the top lane?
No, I'm good on TSM or top lane. If I was doing my own rating, I would probably switch someday in Impact. I think Impact had a better split. And then, do I put Huni at 5? I suppose I have to. I kind of have to. I don't know who I would feel good about putting above.
You could put like Licorice above him, but Huni's team is just so much better.
Yeah, if Licorice was really like hard carrying that team, maybe I would put him up there. Because I remember Someday was like hard carrying 100 Thieves at points when he was surrounded by trash, and people were still rating him really highly. Licorice doesn't seem to be carrying that FlyQuest team.
But it is an interesting conversation. Like, would Team Solo Mid with Licorice be better than this iteration of Team Solo Mid with Huni? Is an interesting thing to think about, but you can't really say like, yeah, I think they'd look better with Licorice, so I'm going to put them above Huni. Can't really say that.
Hypothetically, yeah.
Because
alternate universe.
Because Alfari was on like the worst team in LEC last split, and he was still getting like MVP votes. He was consistently ahead in all gold metrics, like before 10, CS pressure, everything. So people could still recognize his greatness even on a bad team.
Yeah, that's how I feel like Someday was like a year ago. But yeah, that's all I got for top lane really. The TSM or the C9 TL game or series, like we've kind of been hyping it up already. I'm sure everyone who would watch this podcast this far in has seen those games, hopefully. So I would imagine there's no doubt that this was probably like the best set of games all split, probably lock-in tournament included. There were really close games, upsets, like really clutch plays by individual players, like that Fudge Malphite TP, where the Cloud9 team is coming from bot side and Alfaris are running into the top side jungle, and Fudge has the balls to TP into the enemy like buff area and cut him off at the pass. When I saw that, I was up. I was going, woo!
There were so many. I don't remember this play. There were so many clutch plays the series, and I think it's funny that you picked that one because I just don't even remember it.
You don't? Oh, I was so hyped because it was something they didn't have vision of where he was going, but Fudge like predicted where he was going to go to retreat from the Cloud9 team that was coming up from bot side, and he cuts him off, and they Kaisa ults in, and I was just thinking like, what other top laner in the league is doing something like that? Even Alfari, I don't think would take like such a risk. He seems like he's very good, obviously, Alfari, but I don't know if I see him taking these risks. The only one, funnily enough, I can maybe see doing that is Huni. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess I'm too much of a casual fan. My highlight plays were just like the 3-man Orianna ultimates and the perks Zoe bubbles. But when you can appreciate macro like that, teleport decisions, because it's one of those unsung things by top laners that don't really show up in highlight reels, but do have a massive impact on the game. Like if you're teleporting into a ward in the middle of a fight and you die, in the moment you're kind of like, oh, what is he doing? But that's not really a knock against you, even though you can really lose a game like that. And conversely, you can really win a game by that same decision making, as you're saying.
it almost seemed when that game 5 rolled around, not to like jump ahead too far, but when that game 5 came around, it really felt like C9. Have you seen Naruto at all?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, when Rock Lee takes off the training weights,
Oh, that
that's what it
scene is
seemed like.
epic. That scene is
That's
epic.
yeah. That's what it seemed like because it was like such a close series, and all of a sudden C9 says, "Yeah, but we're actually like 10 times better than you," and just pounded them. Anyway,
When he's like fighting the guy and I think it's Sasuke, he's like fighting Sasuke or something, and he's just standing up and he's just holding the weights
and
that he
then
had on his
drops them.
ankles, and all the anime characters are like, what's he about to do? Like take off his ankle weight, and he just drops them and they explode. Like there's an explosion
Yeah, that was perks this game. I think
with his Silas chains, just boom.
his 8-1 Silas game. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's perfect actually. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, tons of hype plays.
Yeah, kind of digressing a little bit or returning back to some of the earlier games.
By all means, yeah.
Like I said in the previous series, the TSM versus Team Liquid Game 2 draft is really interesting. I also thought the Game 2 draft in this series was very interesting. So, to paint a little picture, because maybe you haven't seen the games in a week, but how it went was Cloud9 first picks Hecarim. Team Liquid quickly answered with Udyr and Rel. Or not quickly, but they naturally answered, I should say. Just strong meta champions. And then
Mhm.
Cloud9 picks Kai'Sa and Orianna, which I continue to mention as kind of North America's bread and butter dive composition, where you have Hecarim, Kai'Sa, Orianna.
Oh yeah.
It's just been a really staple in North America and on this patch in general. We've been on it for a while, so we've seen these 3 champions together a lot. But this put Team Liquid in a really tough position for their third pick. So they currently have Udyr and Rel, right? Last game, Tactical played Xayah against Cloud9's dive composition, but Alfari also got first blooded last game and got abused a little bit. So now Team Liquid's kind of in this position where they have their last pick before Phase 3 bans, and they're like, do we want Gnar for Alfari or do we want Xayah for Tactical? Because Cloud9 is already constructing this dive comp. Ultimately, they ended up choosing the Gnar, which is understandable. They want to give Alfari a favorable matchup. Maybe Cloud9 was thinking ahead and were like, yeah, maybe they were like game planning for this. But as soon as the next phase of bans went, Team Liquid picked Twisted Fate, which was immediately followed super fast by Malphite Rakan. Like they had been planning for this. Now they have a super duper dive comp where you have Malphite ultimate, you have Rakan that can fly in and follow up on him. They have Hecarim, Orianna to speed everyone, Xayah to follow up over top. So now
Mhm.
you already know Tactical is not playing this game because Xayah's banned out. Xayah's the only champion that could negate this type of dive pressure. And I'm sure. And then as soon as the game started, Cloud9 got 2 early kills onto Alfari, which just, I bet Jat must have been kicking himself in the shins after this game because we've seen Cloud9 play similar dive comps in the past where they had Malphite, Yasuo, and Gragas and just look so crisp on their engages. And that was really great drafting from Cloud9 because I think they knew Alfari was going to want some pressure in the top lane. I also want to point out that Team Liquid did pick away the Gnar from Cloud9, or maybe they would have considered drafting it. banning it in the next phase or something. Unlike a couple weeks ago in the podcast, I mentioned Dignitas allowed 100 Thieves to get Kaisa, Oriana, and Hecarim and Gnar and like Rel or something, like just the most OP.
I remember that.
But yeah, I thought that game 2 draft was pretty spicy.
Yeah, I really like to see when teams whip out this Malphite, because I feel like it's kind of like Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh. You have to play like the hand, like both
All the
hands, both
comparisons.
legs, the head.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a reverse Exodia where like the enemy team has to lock in, like you said. So they have Udyr or Rel. So far, not a lot of damage. Then you go Gnar. It's still not that much damage. And then the big one is the Twisted Fate, because you lock that in, and all of a sudden, this position mid where you're supposed to have a lot of AP damage, you don't have that like consistent damage that you can bust through Malphite with. And so all of a sudden, it's like open season, time for the Malphite to roll on through. And it was just a really solid pick. It was really effective.
Yeah. My counter to that is, though, with the Twisted Fate, maybe Team Liquid was expecting the Malphite to come through. And then if you have Gnar, if you have Alfari on Gnar, and you have Twisted Fate in the mid lane, if Alfari is pressuring the Malphite a lot with his Gnar, then Twisted Fate comes in out of nowhere. They can kind of snowball the early game with mixed damage onto that Malphite. Yeah. So that's another angle of looking at it.
And I remember the casters were talking a lot about how this TL comp is clearly not going to be able to team fight against Cloud9's composition. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, another like angle of the draft is that they lock in this Udyr and Rel, which can kind of be considered like neutral picks. They can kind of do a lot of things. They're not necessarily heavily indexed into engage. Even though Rel is a little bit, she can still like use those CC abilities to peel or to like counter dive. If people dive onto you, you have the ult, you have the knock up, you have the flip, you have all these tools. So you pick like these two neutral things, and then you see how the Cloud9 composition starts to shape up, and you say, wow, they've got some really strong dive, and they sort of then index into this more split push style with Sivir to clear the waves, TF and Gnar to handle side lanes. But and then you kind of negate the Malphite, like the power it has in this composition or against the enemy composition, because you're never
together
butting heads with it. Yeah.
That's also a good way of looking at it. Like, you can kind of play Twisted Fate in the side lane in a 1-3-1 type of composition. Fudge. I just had an idea pop into my brain about this game. What were we talking about? We're talking about perks on Twisted Fate, and what were you saying?
Or Jensen on Twisted Fate. I was saying... was it about what I was just saying? I was saying that they sort of saw the beginning of this draft.
I remembered.
Yeah.
So, and with this Malphite pick, like the main, in this game, the main way they win is through Alfari beating down the Malphite in the lane phase with the Gnar. Gnar is obviously good into Malphite, but Malphite can kind of rush that early Thornmail, Bramble Vest, but then you have the Twisted Fate that can come over the top. But we saw 2 early ganks by Blabber, which killed Alfari both times. But specifically the second gank, we saw Blabber got there like 8 seconds before Armeo. Like, he was in the area, but he was kind of messing around doing his own thing. And that's kind of where we see... Armeo looked really good with Team Liquid, and I was surprised they played so well in both series. I was really impressed with them. But we kind of see where that synergy is a little bit off between Alfari and Armeo, which maybe if Santorin was there, maybe that second gank doesn't happen, which really stabilized Cloud9 in the early game and allowed them to get into that mid game. It's something to consider because, naturally.
Yeah. Why did we see Armeo? Do you know? I don't like. I'm solely tuned into the games. I don't follow really anything that happens outside of them. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of blindsided by all of a sudden seeing Armeo, who I didn't even realize was Greg. I was like, "Who's this Armeo? This Armeo guy?"
Yeah, Greg. So Armeo, he formerly played for Team Solo Mid, so. Which is kind of interesting that he beat his old team, which I bet he's pretty happy about. And I think Santorin's also secretly a little happy that Team Liquid lost the series secretly because maybe his starting spot would be in jeopardy
Oh, I
otherwise.
see.
But the
Mm.
reason that he didn't play was that apparently, I was curious too, so I looked it up. Santorin was experiencing really bad migraines, and he had to see like a specialist. He was getting bad sleep, couldn't play video games or whatever. And headache doesn't sound that bad, but migraines can be some really serious things if you're not sleeping well enough. Maybe you're drinking a lot of coffee. I don't know. I know other people that have had really bad migraines, and it can affect you pretty dearly. So that's why
Yeah.
Armeo played.
You just said it quickly, like playing video games. But if there's one thing you don't want to be doing with a migraine, I would imagine, is looking at like a glowing screen and really
Yeah.
concentrating hard on a video game. That sounds pretty dreadful.
It's kind of like a
So yeah,
concussion where you need to be like in a dark room.
okay, yeah. So I couldn't fathom like why Santorin wouldn't be like what would stop
I know.
Santorin from being in like the finals of LCS.
It's
But
kind of
fair,
demoralizing,
fair
but
enough.
fortunately, Armeo did step up to the plate this series. Part of it is that
Yeah,
it's kind of like the same four champions, and he plays all of them. Udyr, Olaf, like that's his champion pool pretty much. So it worked out naturally, but heck
yeah,
him.
he's a natural fit. Well,
It's
I'm
not
glad
hard.
he showed up because
Mm.
I remember his name was kind of like sullied after coming off of TSM with the weird Spica Greg situation. If you remember, they were juggling time and they were
No,
both saying like,
it wasn't Spica, it was Arcadian or Acadian.
"Oh, Acadian, you're right, you're right, you're right."
Yeah.
Acadian and Greg. Oh my gosh, that was a crazy year. Yeah,
I
but
heard I heard Grig's a grinder. From Team Solomid's perspective, the reason why they ultimately ended up dropping him for Spica is because, from their words, from DoubleBuffs' words, I believe, was that Grig was a player that grinded really hard and he played really well in practice, but he just couldn't bring that over to the stage. He was too passive on stage. He looked like a completely different player on stage, is what they said, and it was just too consistently happening.
TSM Ward, yeah, TSM Jungle Ward.
So it's nice to see him step up in the biggest stage, right? Like I'm
I
glad,
know.
I'm happy
So
for
like,
him.
do you think he'll find like a starting spot next year, next split?
I think he could definitely be in the consideration over some other junglers. Um,
For sure. Like,
I mean, Iconic looked decent. There's a lot of decent junglers, but maybe
is
someone.
Griffin did he get benched before the season was out?
I
Griffin
don't think
slash
he's
Wiggly.
playing. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like,
He was subbing in for Counter Logic Gaming over Dark.
over Brock, so that's why we
Yeah.
saw him. Yeah. But yeah, um, I forget how we got down this Grig this Grig rabbit hole.
We were talking. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But some other things, I guess, in this series. I think both Jensen and Perks looked really good. There was a game-winning ultimate by Jensen's Oriana in one game where he caught 3 members. There were multiple headhunts by Perks on Zoe, where he thread the needle in 2 team fights in a row. One of them was super impressive in game 4, where he caught tactical and then won the team fight. Match point. In game 4, Fudge also had some really good play on Gragas, on AP Gragas. If any of the viewers are wondering how to play AP Gragas, definitely recommend checking that game out.
Yeah, finally a good time for AP Gragas. I feel like I don't know. I was gonna say I just feel like we never see people go AP, and when we
Well,
do, it's Huni trolling.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. That's it.
yeah. No, I remember that. Trust me.
I remember that game.
Yeah, but yeah, the Zoe plays I remember were specifically that one fight near Dragon. I don't know if the other team fight you're talking about was also near Dragon, but the one I remember was near
Yeah,
Dragon, and he's coming from like the enemy blue buff, and he loops all the way around, and he just keeps pounding Team Liquid with like he never misses. He hits. It was just really disgusting. Was that banned against him any other games? Or did he just decide this is the time to bring it out? No, it doesn't look like it was.
Yeah, I
He was
think they
just
just
holding his spot.
wanted a little more priority in game 4. over like maybe strength and Azir or something with damage. They wanted more playmaking, so that's why they locked in the Gragas Zoe.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Blabber had a really good series. I think the bot lanes are pretty comparable. They both had some like pretty clean plays. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
super crazy, I didn't think. Who stole the Baron as Zaya? Zaya, I think it was. Or no,
I don't even remember.
I don't remember. I think no, it was Dragon they stole, which is slightly less impressive. But someone stole a Baron as Zaya when there was Callista. Oh, that will tell me because the enemy must have been playing Callista. So it was Tactical. Yeah, so Tactical stole the Dragon. Sven got the overall series win. You know, both of these guys were really pulling their weight, I thought. And I feel like Core JJ might have outperformed Vulcan. What do you think?
I'm not sure, to be honest, but I did just watch an interview with Vulcan where he said Vulcan got MVP last spring when they weren't able to attend MSI, and he said that felt pretty good. And then he thought personally he kind of underperformed yesterday,
Yeah,
and he was happy to have his teammates have his back.
well, I guess I feel the same way then. That validates how I felt, I suppose.
Another
But
interesting,
that
yeah.
go for it.
Another
No, I'll save mine for
okay.
the last. Yeah.
Another interesting thing was that they both teams played outside, so it was the first in-person matchup in a while, both series. But I heard from multiple players in the interview, so this kind of affects both teams. But what's interesting is that Team Liquid played Team Solo Mid the day before, so they had a little bit of practice with this stage outside. And the issue with being outside is that there was like sun in the players' eyes and like glare on the screens
Oh,
and
really?
wind in their face in these variables that a lot of players were a little upset about, that weren't like accounted for. I mean, obviously it affected both teams, but Team Liquid at least knew how to like prepare a little more for this game.
That's bizarre, actually. I didn't hear that, but you'd think that Riot would be on that for like the LCS finals.
I mean, it's still tough with COVID, you know. It's their first time coming back. They realized they couldn't do it inside. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's unfortunate. I mean,
for
Team
sure.
Liquid
I
had a
mean, I
sub
guess.
in the finals. Things don't go like according to plan.
Yeah, I guess that's true. You gotta part of how good you are is how you adapt to the
Hmm.
unexpected.
I have one more rant that I definitely want to give about Game 5. Do you want to give your point before my rant or after my rant?
I was just gonna praise Cloud9 for like their level one. Do you think your thing goes better before or after that?
You can talk about their
What kind of
level
a
one.
rant this is?
I have a
Yeah, I
note.
think.
I have a note about the level one. So.
Oh, okay, awesome. So I think anyone who watched it like can really appreciate this level one where we see Tristana and Alistar not only lane swap, but knowing that this is going to be an unusual move, they set up in the bush so that they're behind the Cho'Gath, who honestly they might have, if it was like something like Gnar maybe, which was available in round one of the draft. You know, maybe they don't do this because he has that hop, the flash. That's probably enough distance to get out of there. But Cho'Gath, where you just have the flash, is you know, very hard to escape. Cho'Gath is like one of the least mobile champions in the game. I would say, I would definitely say. So just the presence of mind to like come up with that strategy on the fly, and or not the overall lane swap strategy, but like this first blood opportunity where you have Tristan and Alistar, and you even flash on top of the Cho'Gath, knowing at worst he flashes away, you trade flash for flash. That was really good. And then Fudge on the opposite side of the map, on weak side, knowing that he's going to be in a 2v1. So he's actually going to take jungle camps away and do that like suicide Scion thing so that he doesn't have to show his face so early in this 2v1. He can get a few freebies. Um, just very impressive. And I saw a lot of Reddit comments saying, gee, because Cloud9 was down 2-1, right? And then they won game four.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember Reddit comments saying, dang, Cloud9 was so confident that they were going to win game four that they didn't even pull out the cheese until game five.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
mean, part of the reason they also didn't pick it out game 4 was this was a practice composition with Zaya with Sion. I heard in the post game interview that like this had been done previously. Like they got it from Rogue, I think last year, So they had practiced this with their academy team and were saving it for the right moment to do. So it was a practice thing, and they were planning to do it. And Cho'Gath is a really good matchup into Sion, so that's why they debated the Cho'Gath pick first of all. So they got the
True.
Cho'Gath. Yeah, so that's why they picked Cho'Gath, and then they just counteracted that lane swap completely, that bad matchup completely with the lane swap. But another thing that the casters didn't point out that I really wanted them to point out, because I kept thinking about it, I was like, why aren't you saying this? Is that okay? So the lane swap happened, right? Um, and Team Liquid's response to the lane swap was to send Rel into the top lane with Cho'Gath to kind of stem some of the bleeding. But what this does now is that Sion is getting solo lane experience, right? And Hecarim just got 3 buffed, right? Okay, wait. There's so many things that I wanted to say. So let me phrase this better. Cho'Gath is getting less experience because he's in a double lane against Cloud9's bot lane, right? And Hecarim just got 3 buffed, so he has less experience. And now the lanes. Okay, so fast forward through everything, the lanes kind of even out, and now you have Cho'Gath against Sion again in the top lane, where Cho'Gath's favored. So Armeo on Hecarim, Alfari's probably like, yo, come top, get me a gank in, we can kill this dude, I'll get ahead, we'll offset that early pressure that happened. Perks had the state of mind to come in top lane at the same time. So now you have Sion, who had been getting solo lane experience against Team Liquid's AD carry tactical. And then you had Perks, who had been getting solo lane experience. Meanwhile, there was Cho'Gath, who was getting less experience because
I
he was
know
in
what
the
you're
double
talking about.
lane. Yeah. And Hecarim also had less experience because he got 3 buffs. So you had like a level 4 Hecarim, a level 5 Cho'Gath against a level 6 Sion and a level 6 Perks on Sylas. And so they executed the early game perfectly, and then right when things swap back to normal, they also executed this play perfectly, where they had 2 level 6s against 2 underlevels, where they weren't expecting this at all, completely caught Team Liquid off guard. And Sylas stole Hecarim's ultimate when Hecarim didn't even have his ultimate. It was awesome. And another interesting point about all this is that the fact that they went for this lane swap in game 5, not only the balls, how great it looked, it was so exciting, but also Team Liquid could have been coming into this game with their own unique strategy too, right? But the lane swap and all these crazy plays, even if Cloud9 didn't perform it perfectly, whatever Team Liquid's plan was going this game completely changed. And they have to react instead of take the driver's seat. And that must have been demoralizing. Not only with the wind coming on you, there's glare, you have your sub jungler. And now Cloud9's pulling out this game 5 lane swap. They lost from the moment they did that lane swap, the game was over. I don't care what happened, the game was over.
I hadn't even followed the thread that far to the reason that I remember the play where they were 4-5 or 6-6, but I hadn't followed the thread all the way through from the lane swap to come to that conclusion. That is so crazy intelligent of Cloud9 or of Perks specifically. Like I said, dropping the training weights off. That's insane. Even more props to him then. And then also he was roaming bot lane at level 4, where the communication for Blabber to do this almost point blank flash on top of Hecarim just to delay him enough that then Parks can get his flash over the dragon wall and they double flash onto Hecarim and bust him down. Oh man, game 5 was so good.
It was awesome.
But, yeah.
And what's even better about them doing that is that this entire meta has been constructed where if you go for the 10% chance play of working out and it works, you get a minor gold advantage, right? These are hyper farming carry junglers where all you want to do is farm and not gank. When you go for that small percentage play of working out and it works out, you get a minor gold lead. But when it doesn't work out, you're doomed. You're F star ed. And because if Perks and Udyr blow their flashes there and they don't get the kill, the game's over. Team Liquid wins, and they only got a 500 gold lead. Perks lost 20 minions in the mid lane, which is just you just love to see that as their top team because that's a championship mentality. That's a winner's
Yeah,
mentality right there. That's the type of when you take those 90% plays, it's the teams that can execute the 10% plays that win championships and win worlds and win trophies, as we saw this game.
yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. I assume you probably feel the same way, but I'm very hyped to see this Cloud9 team at MSI. Very
I'm
excited to
super
see how they do
hyped. Let's go.
because I always feel like the top NA teams are like pretty significantly behind like almost every other region. I feel like this Cloud9 team can compete with like I don't actually know who's going from other regions. I was about to say G2 because I just assumed G2 made it. Did they even make it?
No, they got knocked out by Mad
They got
Lions.
knocked
Mad
out.
Lions are going, yeah. Perks
That's
won't be
nuts.
playing his old team.
That's so sad if they had that rematch. Oh, that would have been so epic. But I'm sure it'll be good either way.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was saying, I feel like this Cloud9 team can actually,
I
put them up with the
love
best.
I love that you're saying that because I say that literally every single Worlds in MSI. I always get hyped up and then we get destroyed every friggin' time. Every single time. That game 5
Not
got
this
me
time.
so hyped. I'm like, yo, we actually have a chance this time, but I'm not improving my expectations.
You're not gonna say, yeah. You're not. Knock on wood. I'll knock on wood. There you go. For you, Greg, for your
Because
expectations.
there was also a lot of mistakes by both teams, and like yes, Cloud9 won and they looked good, but they almost lost to like Team Liquid with a sub jungler. You know,
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it wasn't against Team Liquid at like their peak or anything.
yeah,
And with such a close series, actually, maybe Santorin was what they needed to win this series because it still was super close. Assuming
yeah,
Santorin's better than Armeo.
yeah. It's difficult to say. I don't want to take too much away from Cloud9's win, but I do want to like temper my expectation a little bit going into MSI.
Very understandable. Yeah, I think it's always wise to do that with NA, like you were saying. Been burned too many times.
Way too many times, dude. I've been watching since like 2015, and CLG is losing to wild card teams from Brazil. I can't do it anymore. I'm
Yeah.
tired,
So we got
Cristiano. I'm tired.
MSI in 3 weeks, so we'll see how they finally do when we get there, I suppose. It's a long way to wait, though.
Yeah.
3 weeks of no LCS. What will I do?
You can hang out with me, man.
True.
You want to go to
True. What
Vermont
will
again?
what will we do if we're not talking about LCS?
True.
Exactly.
You don't have enough personality to talk about anything else.
Definitely not.
I'm kidding.
Anything else on these series you wanted to touch on?
Nope. Just one more note that could come up. LCS has been on 11.5 for a long time, and a lot of these other regions have been playing on like 11.7, I'm pretty sure. So they're more up to date competitively with where the current meta stands. So that is another disadvantage for North America going into that. They're going to have to learn the ropes a little quick, which is kind of one of NA's weakness. Well, I don't know if it's a weakness. I think Cloud9 is the team that can adapt the fastest out of any North American team, so I'm not too worried. But I do think it's another hindrance on Cloud9 that could affect them. Also, China's been playing like in person for I'm pretty sure like the whole season, so that's another advantage they have. Cloud9 doesn't have as many reps. Europe, I definitely think we can take games off Mad Lions. China, Korea, they have Damwon who absolutely steamrolled through. They're the former champions. They steamrolled through
Very
everyone.
scary.
3-0s, 3-0s, 3-0s. It's like, oh, they almost lost the game.
That's the best you get.
So there's going to be a lot of good competition. We have Vietnam coming back, who are always really exciting to watch. But overall, I'm really excited for this. Otherwise, I guess that's about it. There's also 11.8. If you wanted to touch up on
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm excited about the meta going in. I feel like we might finally see some changes. Rammus is looking really strong with that new ultimate, and he got a bunch of ability changes too. Like his basic attacks make his his ball curl lasts longer now. His taunt has been actually nerfed. Never mind. Ignore me. I was about to say buffed. But all these changes on like a lot of different champions. Orianna's nerfed finally. LeBlanc got a massive buff. Nara's nerfed. Cassiopeia's buffed. Just all these different things that, you know, hopefully we see some new picks rise up. Maybe like that Cassiopeia, LeBlanc. I'm kind of tired of the meta right now. Of Udyr, Hecarim, Orianna, Azir, Gnar, Sion. You know, I'd like to see something different. We started to see Varus poke his head out a little bit, which I like. Varus has always been a favorite of mine. But yeah. And also, that new Galio skin is dank as hell. It's so good. Dragon Guardian Galio. He is a dragon. He's got like a dragon face, but he's also got this like big flowing white beard with like braids in it. Oh, it's sick.
Beauteous. Yeah, I think 3 things or 4 things. Gnar got nerfed a little bit. Same with Orianna. Also, Lucidity boots are up 50 gold. I don't know if it's that much of a difference to push them out of the meta, but maybe it's just enough to start considering other boots in certain situations, because we saw junglers just going Lucidity boots like over and over and over and over again. And also Hextech Rocket Belt, which has kind of been out of the picture for most champions. And Night Harvester is just a better option if you do want to go like for more of an assassin-y thing. They added some extra magic penetration to it. They added 6 magic penetration, and they lowered like the health by 100. So maybe you want like Rocket Belt for AP assassins a little more than you do Night Harvester now. Night Harvester seems like the better option for champions like Akali, which I think we're going to be seeing a little bit of at MSI. But maybe Rocket Belt does start showing its face a little more rather than Night Harvester being the auto buy.
Yeah, the Lucidity boot thing. I know one of the draws of Lucidity boots for junglers too was that you could afford them after like a full clear. You could just buy Lucidity boots. So maybe that, I'm not sure exactly if you could just afford them or if you had a little extra. So maybe if you could just afford them, that 50 extra increase will mean that you can't just clear 6 camps and a Scuttle Crab back and have Lucidity boots anymore, unless you want to wait for 50 gold, which is kind of
true. I mean, I've been playing, like I've played a few AP Shaco games, and it doesn't seem to like affect me that much. The extra 50 gold, like I still think Lucidity boots are the better option than the magic penetration ones, Sorcerer shoes. But at the very least, even if every champ picks it, it'll lower the really meta ones a little bit. Because like Udyr spamming, I don't know. It's just, I don't think it's really going to change anything. But
no, that doesn't sound like a big change. The only way I see it changing is, like I said, if there's like a very specific break point that you hit in gold that like lets you hit it.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of DoubleBuffs. Have anything to say to our many viewers, Cristiano?
Yeah, you're all sweet, you're all cute, and you all deserve the best in this world. See you in a few weeks.